It was a very good G-Day, generally speaking, but Matt DeBerry and I are going to talk about some of the newcomers that you saw. I'm going to start straight up with Lawson Lucky. I thought he splashed. I don't know what the term should be, but some of the younger guys, I mean, with Lawson, he was catching the ball. It was relatively simple to see, but you tell me who you thought jumped off, and I'll listen.
Yeah, Xavier Story for me was one of the big winners. I talked about this a little bit in a video earlier last week, but Dean, he's a 5-star that Kirby talked about, saying, hey, came from a really, really small school in Florida,
Yeah.
went to IMG to get better, but was hurt. So it's easy to see why it took him a couple years. But that's a guy that we've just been waiting on to see. And I thought he flashed that 5-star ability. When he makes a tackle, it's not just he gets the guy to the ground. I mean, he's throwing you to the ground. He is a physical tackler. And when he got to guys, it to me, it flashed. And I stood out, was watching from the press box. I said, okay, 18, there he
But
is. That's that 5-star that we've
but
been
you
hearing about.
expected that.
Eventually, and he is big and strong and can run. So he was kind of a project. And again, from a small school, wasn't, just super raw getting to Georgia. And now you're seeing that the light's starting to come on a little bit. Still going to be behind Small Munden and Jamon Dumas Johnson. But when we see a lot of these backups at the end of games, I think Xavier Story is going to flash and maybe try to creep his way into the lineup. Jalen Walker was out, so he had an opportunity to see the field because guys were dinged up, and I thought he made the most of it. So that was just one guy. Again, your guy, I'll call him Dean's guy, Dominic Lovett, that you've been talking about for a while,
Ooh,
saying he's going to make an impact.
I
He's really
mean,
good.
well, I don't know if he's Dean's guy. I just think he's good, and I think that um, again, we're basically talking about people in this video that have not played for Georgia. Like
Yeah,
they were not real big contributors on the 21, on the 22. The national championships are getting confusing, Matt. I'm trying to figure out which one is which on either of these two national championship teams. Yeah, look, I think Lovett showed some of what he could do, but I think it's the production. Um, the production could be really a lot. But we'll see. I mean, I think at receiver, when you look at you know, what they're doing, it was curious seeing Don Blaylock back in his jersey at Georgia. I know he
yeah,
wasn't practicing, but anyway, uh, McConkey is a star. I think that Bell, the person who's come the maybe this is the wrong way to put it. The person that's come the furthest way might be Marcus Rosemary Jack Saint. But I think that you know Smith, Roseme, uh, McConkey, they've got a good group there, but Lovett could really pop in there and make some trouble for other teams because like after a while it's like how do who do you cover? I guess you got to cover everybody, which is a problem. Other guys, defensive guys, talk about the young guys that play the linebackers and the D linemen.
Oh man, CJ Allen really stood out on that red
Yeah.
team, second stream defense. A guy who was practicing with the team, was on the scout team that Kirby talked about that helped them with Ohio State and TCU. But a big, physical, strong guy, played both ways. Real physical player, played running back as well at Barnes County. In Barnesville, Lamar County. But
Right.
I thought
Don't get that wrong. They're
that's right,
very
right.
sensitive about
That's
that.
right. But he was running all over the place, showed really good speed for a guy that's just muscled and thick. Damon Wilson had 2 sacks off the edge, 5-star guy, saw a little bit
Harris.
of that. Um, Gabe Harris played, but AJ Harris,
That's
had 5, 6 tackles in
that's right.
coverage at cornerback. Jordan Hall, big. I am so big on Jordan Hall. I talked to his coach for like 30 minutes on the phone about a week before he committed to Georgia because we knew he was going to Georgia. And I'm 100% bought in. I'm buying all the stock on Jordan Hall. He was easy to notice. 44, had 2 pass deflections.
Yeah.
And
No,
I'm
no,
saying
he I didn't know. I
he's
mean,
going to be really
it's
good.
evident who that was. But then again, you
Yeah.
pointed out if there's a guy that's going to be their next Jordan Davis, is the way you put it, as I
Jalen
recall.
Carter.
Excuse me. Did I
Jalen
say?
Carter.
I said George. You did say Jalen Carter. These defensive linemen. We talked on video before about what Trey Scott's done at Georgia, and you get lost in the guys that they have signed.
Yeah.
You realize that and I know I'm getting off the subject here as usual, but they're going to have Tramel Walthour was a multi-game. He was like a 13 game starter last year.
Yeah.
I did
Zion
not
Logue was too,
well,
according to
but
UGA Dogs. But I
yeah,
mean,
but I didn't realize that Tramel had started that many games. Man,
yeah.
I mean, I guess And then you got, so basically you're returning three starters on that defensive line with Zion, Walthour, and and Stackhouse. And then you come in with Brinson. They are gonna be. This team is really good. I mean, I just anyway. We're sticking with the younger guys. At receiver, I
Salmon
don't
Pimba looks like a freak, by the way.
24.
Yeah.
Well, no, he's not
I think it
24.
was
No,
20.
I said
They had the
something
freshmen have
different
some weird numbers right now,
because
so it was hard to figure out. But
he can't be
he's
24 and play with Starks on the field at the same
right,
time.
right,
So, but
big and long and athletic. Though I
was
forgot
he
what
number
number he was.
24 for that game?
Maybe because he was on the second string defense, so he was never out there with
You
Malachi.
talk
Uh,
about him while I look this up because I remember him
yeah,
catching that ball on the sideline, and I think I told you I was like,
yeah.
man, I know I shouldn't, I know
He
this
just went
should.
up and snatched it.
He just snatched it, and I was like, I
Uh,
like that. I don't mind that at all. Go ahead.
he's got some Leonard Floyd to him. Maybe not as tall and as long as a guy like Darius Smith, who has a chance to maybe have a breakout season, but he's got a lot of muscle on him, and he
He's
looks. I think Ryan mentioned he looks like a seasoned veteran already out there. He doesn't look like a freshman. Big time player. He and
he's
Damon
number
Wilson are two
26, which is a
26.
strange number. I don't know why I
Yeah,
said 24.
yeah. Those guys are going to. You want to talk about creating havoc is what they say all the time. Those two guys are going to create a lot of havoc, and I think we're going to see them a good amount in mop up duty because Georgia's going to be blowing a lot of teams out again for the
Yeah.
third season in a row. So we're going to see a lot of these young guys. And I said in a video last week, these young defenders that they just brought in this 23 class are the real deal. Janelle Aguaro, the safety, pops somebody. That dude
Yeah,
can
he
hit.
did.
He can strike. He is the guy who's going to flash, and he's going to bring an intimidating presence to the safety position. So a lot of really young guys. I think Kirby Smart is really, really happy about.
He was number he was number 8. I think the other thing when you start talking about Mpemba, that's two guys on this video we've specifically talked about from St. Louis, and when you pull back and look at the situation for the Dogs coming into this thing, there's a lot of, I mean, obviously it's Georgia heavy, but and to some degree it's Florida heavy. But man, you're getting guys from all over the place. Andrew Paul, who we don't yet know exactly how much he will explode on the scene, from Dallas. Bellevue, Illinois, for the record, is basically St. Louis. So I know that gets a little bit confusing
Yeah.
for people, but uh,
Dylan Bellis from Houston.
yeah,
Um,
it's all over the place, and I just California. I mean, we're sitting here waiting on a commitment from a kid from Phoenix, and it's just there's a lot of players on this team, and it's taken a very national scope. Which
yeah, I think
Go
there's
ahead.
a wide receiver, 5-star wide receiver from St. Louis, who is also
Yeah,
training towards Georgia right now.
right,
Ryan Puglisi from Connecticut,
right.
4-star quarterback commit. And when you're winning championships, the whole country knows who you are. Georgia was already a national brand even before these two national
Yeah.
championships, but
Yeah, I
now,
mean, like Florida is always going to be a
yeah,
national
yeah.
brand, but they're just not very good right now. Go ahead.
Georgia's the school. Now, it was
Yeah.
Alabama for the longest time, but for kids out in California, when they watch Georgia beat TCU in Los Angeles by 80 points, yeah, Georgia's going to be the team that everyone's talking about. And when you get that Georgia offer, it means a lot more than it did maybe 5 to 10 years ago, even though
Oh,
it was still a
sure.
big deal then. When you get the Georgia offer, it's wow, like I've made it. I've really made it. Two-time national champions offered me. Big, big deal for everyone.
Yeah, it's just curious. See, I mean, Georgia's always had players from Florida. I mean, that's sort of a normal thing. To get kids from Tennessee is not a big deal, but
North Carolina, yeah.
yeah, I mean they've dabbled in the Carolinas forever. You can't be one of these southern schools and not go try to grab kids from the Carolinas and Florida. But that their brand is two of their better players are from California. Their starting center is from Louisiana. Now you're starting to sprinkle in kids from St. Louis, and a lot of folks. I'll just quick. I don't want to talk about it forever, but a lot of folks, will say, why don't they stick with the kids from Georgia? Want to stick? Well, because they're not as good as the other kids. Matt, you rob banks because that's where the money is. That's why you don't rob. I mean, churches come to mind. There's some churches have money in them, but you get my point. I mean, you're not, you're going to go to the place that's got the cash, and if in Georgia's case, these players are where they are, and you got to go get them. I do think Florida recruited this way under Urban. When you start thinking about Percy Harvin, the guy that was convicted of murder, who's Aaron Hernandez. There's only so many Tim Tebow's who are right there. You got to go get other guys, and they did. And Georgia, in this case, has become the school clearly. And how long that will last, I don't know. I mean, it could last 10 years. It's a good question for riding home. But I thought the young players did look good. Your final thought?
Yeah, young, talented, hungry team, but there's
Fast.
still plenty of veteran, experienced guys, especially on that defensive line that we talked about. So it's a mixture of both. You got a lot of veterans, and you've got a lot of really talented young freshmen who are going to make a big name for themselves probably sooner than later.
Thanks for watching.